Welcome back to the ASN Dad Chat. We're a podcast and community dedicated to making sure no ASN dad in Scotland has to walk this path alone.
Our goal is simple: real talk, real honesty, and sharing our own experiences to help you navigate the system. Whether you're in our meetup group already or just finding us now, you've got a seat at the table.
And just a reminder, we aren't experts, we're just dads, and this is just experiences and opinions, not medical advice and not legal advice. Now let's go on with the chat today.
Hello and welcome to ASN Dad Chat. This is episode 11. I'm Andy and I'm joined by Sam.
Hello.
And Glyn.
Hello.
And today what we're going to be talking about, after talking about kids for 10 episodes, now it's time to talk about dad. This is all about dad.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I think it's about time we have a bit of time about us.
Oh yeah. Where do we begin?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of things we've probably touched on through the kind of previous episodes, but I guess we kind of go back to the very start in terms of what was your plans. Did you always plan to have kids? What was your kind of family plans and dreams, essentially?
I'll kick us off. I think I always wanted kids when I was younger. It didn't go to plan that way. When I met my partner, she obviously had the kind of two older ones. So jumping from 0 children to 2 was quite it was quite eye-opening, to say the least. Getting used to their routines, getting used to their structure, learning about them kind of as we were going. And then I went off to university and found out halfway through that we were expecting our third, which was one of those that just kind of caught us off guard.
So it was unplanned?
Yeah, but I think for us, we started off, we weren't too sure what to do, as I'm sure.
Did someone explain it to you?
Yeah, they were like, so this is what happens, and then this is what... No, I think we were kind of, just because of the situation we were in, our oldest, he had a lot of kind of additional support needs. So we had a lot of things to consider. We weren't living together at that stage. We weren't, at the time we had, we were together for, coming up to 2 years at that point. So we were a wee bit unsure of what we originally planned, but we then found out that we had twins at the time.
Oh,
right.
And we had twins up until about 10 weeks.
Right.
One of them unfortunately didn't make it, but through I think in terms of my partner's pregnancy, it was quite difficult. She had hypoglycemia, I think it's called.
Right.
She was just very, very ill all the time. I got an earful for my genes making her ill. But yeah, and then it was a C-section birth. And the doctor very much sat us down and explained it all. She knew everything, my partner, she knew she had C-sections before. I was completely clueless as to what to expect, and it was very much so your son will be born in 2 minutes, and the rest of the time will be us putting your partner back together, basically. And I just kind of looked at him with open eyes like, oh, so in 2 minutes I'm going to have a son. Yeah. So, no, but it's been a roller coaster ever since then. How about you guys?
For me, I was always on the fence about being a dad. I think I'd never had a great relationship with my own father, so I wasn't sure if I even wanted to be a dad until I met Jade. And when me and Jade started having our relationship and we were together properly, that was when I was like, okay, I do want a family, I do want to be a parent. Jade first wanted 4. I said absolutely not. I said 1's my limit. I was back down to that. Yeah, we at the time of talking about having Elijah, obviously we were very much on okay, we'll try, and if anything happens, it happens. Turns out it happened the first time around.
Wow, there you go.
I have very prolific swimmers, apparently.
Yes.
We were. It was just before Christmas. And we'd gone down to see my family down in Birmingham. My cousin at the time who we stayed with had just had a daughter, so we were coming to meet her properly for the first time. And Jade wasn't feeling great at all. the whole time. Like, she was just like, I don't feel great at all, XYZ. And then she was talking to my cousin's wife, and she's like, do you think you might be pregnant? She goes, no, surely not. So the first thing we did when we got back to Glasgow was we got a pregnancy test, and Jade went upstairs, give it a try, and came back down going, yep. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, are you sure? And she's like, yep. I was like, brilliant, no worries. And then we just went from there. We had a couple of ups and downs with certain things. Jade was very unwell the whole time. She was pregnant as well. And we were rented at times, and our landlord at the time had decided he wasn't going to pay his mortgage. So at one point we were nearly homeless, which was fun as well. But that all sorted itself out, and Elijah came early, as I've spoken about before. A lot of man just was not having it, wanted out, which was absolutely fair, especially when you get to know Elijah. That makes absolute sense. He had to spend 2 weeks in NICU, but there was nothing really wrong with him. It just needed to be monitored, and obviously to make sure, like, because he was so early, they were like, we need to make sure he's okay, everything's right. Funniest, one of the memories that we have had, like, he was born like just before our anniversary, so we had guilt about going to have time for our anniversary and stuff like that. So, like, but the nurses were very keen for us to still have our time together, so we did, and we were not to see him beforehand. And obviously, one of the nurses was like, "Oh, let's what are you going to do?" And we were like, "Oh, we're just going to go to Braehead, get some food, and then come back." She's like, "See, while you're at Braehead, do you mind going to Argos for me and picking up my my dinner plate set?" I'm like, "What?" One of the nurses like, "You can't ask that." She goes, "If you don't ask, you don't get." So we did go and do it because this one was looking after our children. But yeah, we brought him back home, and we just went from there. Obviously, like, I absolutely dove straight into being a dad. I absolutely loved it. Still do. With our second, Noah, it was a conversation we'd had for a while, because at that point we knew Elijah was autistic. He had his diagnosis. We always had the idea that we would wait until Elijah was in school, so that we knew Elijah had a school. We knew he was getting the needs that he needed. We also wanted to be owning our own house, and there was all these things that we needed to make sure we had in place. So we ticked both of them off, and then we were like, okay, do we have a second? And again, it became a conversation of, we'll see what happens. If we do, we do. And we did. And little Noah came along early as well, in the December of 2024, which was a nightmare. But it did mean I got my paternity leave over Christmas, which will never happen again. 2 weeks off at Christmas, never going to happen again in retail.
Oh God, yeah.
I was Noah was took a little bit more longer than Elijah did to come along, but again, he had to spend a bit of time in the NICU. Not as long. It was just because he had an infection when he was first born, and it was like, well, we need to monitor him. Unfortunately, he was in over Christmas. It was a bit annoying because they were like, on Christmas Day we went up there and they're like, yeah, no, he can't come home. He's still not ready. And then Boxing Day, he's like, yeah, he's good to go.
Oh.
So we were like, okay, cool, brilliant. We still had him home over Boxing Day, and we just had a second Christmas, realistically. But yeah, that was us. What about you, Andy?
So I always wanted a big family, so the plan for me and Cheryl, we both love kids. We wanted 4 kids. Kind of opposite to you. We were like, yep, 4 minimum. So we'll go for that.
Minimum?
No, I'm saying that. 4 is enough. But 4 was a plan. We'd always wanted to go for 4. We had 2 miscarriages before Ashton as well. So in terms of when Cheryl was pregnant with Ashton, there was obviously that massive excitement, but then also the kind of apprehension, because we could kind of know what could happen essentially. Because, you know, it's like at first when you're going through the kind of first pregnancy, you obviously don't expect anything to go wrong at all. So then obviously it happened the first time, and then happened the second time. So the third time we're a lot more kind of worried essentially, and it was a lot more apprehensive, a lot more scans and things. But obviously, thankfully, Ashton was born, and he's obviously the boy we know and love today. He was kept in to the hospital as well. He had jaundice to start, so it was kind of start as you mean to go on with hospital stays and everything like that. So that was his first visit. But no, I've always wanted to be a dad. I love being a dad. yeah, I think it's obviously just with Ashton, and obviously his kind of support needs. It's just made us kind of rethink the 4 kids. So we'll see what happens with that. But no, yeah, definitely something that I'm happy we did, and we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, it's obviously a different story than we thought it was going to be in terms of how you expect to be a dad. I know we've obviously touched on it before, and you think you're going to kind of grow up and you're going to go to, I know personally thought it'd be, we'd be teaching them to play football, taking them to see movies, doing all the sort of things when you're younger. And obviously the paths are a little bit different now, which I'm sure you can relate, that there isn't any sort of set path now. You can't really imagine what the future's going to be like, which is obviously intimidating and difficult, but at the same time it can make things not really interesting but exciting at the same time. You get a lot more surprises in terms of
for sure.
development, a lot more ups and obviously plenty of downs as well, but I think it's one of these ones that the main thing you're looking forward to is just watching your kids grow and develop in any way that they can. It's these kind of small surges and small improvements that just mean the massive difference.
Absolutely. I think I find it really interesting how different our stories are when it comes to having kids. I think it really speaks to how, just different your journey is when that happens. I know when my partner told me she was expecting, I was bamboozled, to say the least. I was like, how, I'm not working right now, I'm in university, how in the world am I going to be able to provide all of these types of things? And I was very anxious. And I remember we went to her mum's and we sat down, and both of them were talking to me about it. And my partner, she had miscarriages in a previous relationship, so it was very much a warning of this can happen. It's not as smooth sailing as you think. I was very much completely brand new to all of it, and then I think when we lost the first one, I was like, oh God, where is this going to go? But my partner, she went through, she got COVID twice, she had blood clots, her hypoglycemia, she was in and out of hospital doing like scans, all of that. So much radiation was going on. I thought he was going to come out looking green. It was one of those that there was so many things, so many factors at play. And then I still remember to this day, we done like a kind of private scan gender reveal type thing, and it was something we talked about before, and my partner was like, God, do you want to know? And I was like, yeah, I want to know. I know there's people who on both of our sides who don't want to know what the gender is and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm too nosy, I need to know. And when we kind of opened, we had this like box, and we opened it up, and it was a blue elephant with the heartbeat. And I remember, like, my partner had it nailed on that it was going to be a baby girl. Mm-hmm. And I was like, nah, it's a boy. I was like, no, I'm going to die in this hill, it's a boy. But she was like, the way it presents, the way her body was reacting was the same as her previous pregnancy, which was obviously her stepdaughter. So, I was like, well, I mean, I don't care so long as they're happy and healthy. That's all I was really caring about. And then when I pulled out, I always wanted a baby boy. It was always something I really wanted. So I feel quite blessed in that sense. But we found out quite quickly after that my partner can't have any more children. So we were in our heads, we were like, right at the start it was going to be four children, and I was like, well, 4, that's a nice number, no more than that. And then after we lost one, we were kind of like, well, 3's a nice number, but we felt kind of a wee bit unfinished in that regard. Mm-hmm. So we decided to get another dog. And that's been mental. But
yeah. I mean, did you do any sort of gender reveal stuff, Glyn? I know for us, we had fireworks, so we had all the family over and everything. It was a case of the fireworks would go off, you'd be able to see if it was a boy or a girl based on the fireworks. And I remember it's all recorded and everything. I remember the firework was up, and everyone's there, and it goes off, and Cheryl was like coming over to me like, oh my god, and I'm like, it looks white, I can't tell. Like, she was like, oh, no, it's a boy, it would be pink, and I'm like, oh yeah, amazing sort of thing. Is that way in my head? I'm like, it doesn't look blue, but no, it's nice. It's that way of, I feel like I'd always want to know, and it was obviously a nice kind of surprise to get early on, so you know what to expect. But I would even say, just touching on the kind of miscarriage thing, I don't know about you, Sam, in terms of that, like for me I kind of find it similar to when you kind of go through the diagnosis for autism, or you kind of find out about that, is before you're kind of in that world you never ever hear about it, but then as soon as we had a miscarriage, so many people came out to be like, oh no, I've had a miscarriage as well, you've had this, and it's that way of, it's almost as if you're kind of just walking through the world with your eyes closed to so many different things, and until you're in that world it's just everywhere. It's like that way when you get a new car and then everywhere you look is that one car. Not to compare miscarriages to new cars, but yeah, I think there is obviously a lot of things we're not aware of.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think it was very similar to like when I was a lot younger. I lost my dad at quite an early age, and it was one of those that you didn't really, like, nobody really talked about it, but then so many people would like message me at the time, and they were like, oh, I've lost a loved one, you know, and it is kind of like that. And you know, my partner, she very much dealt with it in her own way. You know, she has like a tattoo with like little stars that symbolise the miscarriages she's had, and it's really beautiful. You know, but I think as a dad, it's really difficult to understand how that feels for a woman.
Yep, 100%.
You know, I think something that I try to be as understanding as humanly possible, and I think it must be, you know, so difficult to understand. You know, I was obviously heartbroken when we lost the other one, but I was sitting there going, this is my first experience of it. You know, and then she was like,
They're the ones that are actually living it, sort of thing.
yeah,
like,
you know, you know, she was very much, you know, it's happening inside her body, and that must be horrific. But you know, I'm not going to touch on too much negativity in this, but I think when it comes to child, you know, when it comes to that journey, and you know, the ups and downs that you go through, you know, I think my parents, I think I was the 7th attempt at having a child, so. You know, I don't. My mum never really spoke too much about it, but you know, I think it was always I knew what miscarriages were.
Yeah.
You know, I'd never experienced that one, so like I very much I know what you're saying. But I think you just have to be thankful at the end of the day for the ones, you know, for the children we do have. And
I know, and I think we can agree, obviously, whether it's through the miscarriages or childbirth itself, that the mums are the superheroes of it all.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Glyn, I asked you a question, answered it myself, and then moved on to a different subject. But did you do any sort of baby reveal or gender reveal?
Yes, absolutely.
We went for a private viewing for Elijah. That was essentially the baby reveal for that. We did the smoke things for Noah. We'd already gone and seen the private scan. We went into somewhere in Glasgow. Got the reveal. Obviously, we checked. Similar to yourself, obviously, we thought that Jade might end up having twins because twins run in Jade's family. Essentially, all the firstborns of her side of the family have always been twins, but they've always been girls, whereas on my side it's always been lads. I don't know if I could be a mum.
You definitely couldn't be a mum.
Couldn't be a mum. I couldn't be a girl dad. I don't know how to do it. I'm definitely a boy dad.
You wing it. That's I've been in my stepdaughter's life 4.5 years, coming up to 5, and I still don't know how to do her hair. You know, so
yeah, we did the smoke things. We did it in my mother-in-law's back garden. I had one, and my mother-in-law had another one, and she couldn't get the thingy to pop off, and we're just like, she's like, you give me a fake one, you give me a fake one. I'm like, no, I've done mine, look, it's gone. She's like, obviously the blue smoke and whatnot, and I was happy to be a dad of a boy of a second go around. Noah is coming into himself currently. As I say, he's feral at the moment. I don't know how else to put it. But yeah, it's interesting seeing you guys talk about, obviously, the idea of being like, I want big families, because that was always something that was never on my mindset. Obviously, I don't know if it was just from like me living such a lads lifestyle before I really got with Jade and made my life in Glasgow. But the idea of becoming a parent at any point in my life terrified me. And I think it was because, as I said, I didn't have the best relationship with my dad. I didn't know how to be a dad. So you're saying winging it like with a girl, like I feel like I've constantly winged it throughout the two boys' whole lives. I always had grand plans of what I thought I might be as a dad and how I would just deal with certain things. But I think at this point I'm just trying to be the best that I can for both of them. I know I when Elijah was first born, I had this idea that on every one of his birthdays I was going to write a letter, and I was going to have them tidied away, and he could have them when he's older. He could read through them and he could see what each one of what his life was like every year going forward. And then he got his diagnosis, and I just didn't do it. And a part of me proper regrets that, because I feel like that would have been a nice thing for me to even look back on. But I never did it. It's definitely a regret.
I think there's so many things in that we plan, and like you were very much touching on, Andy, when you find out about having a child come along, you make these instant plans in your head. You have these plans of taking them to extracurriculars and sitting down and watching stuff with them, showing off for me it was showing off all of my nerdy stuff. God, I pictured watching Star Wars with my kids and being like, yeah, this is the peak. But yeah, I think you make all of these plans, and then kind of like what you were touching on, as you get to know your child, and especially down our kind of route of getting a diagnosis, understanding that life is going to be very different for our children, those plans basically go straight into the trash can, so to speak, and you very much touched on, Glyn, you just kind of wing it. Yeah, I think I had a very good relationship with my dad, so I felt quite lucky in that regard. I know I can understand, from that perspective, it's all about our upbringing and how we live our lives that kind of distinguish on whether we want kids or not. I think it's very, it's very important, our experiences and how that have shaped us. So I think I always wanted to be a dad, and now being one, I certainly didn't think it was going to be this stressful, or nor did I think it was going to have to require so many nappy changes and so many so many putting on washings and so many accidents. But no, you love it all the same, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's obvious what you're saying, Glyn. It could just be an upbringing thing. So I've always been around. I've got a lot of cousins. Before Ash was born, I had three nephews that loved to bits. And I think it's just I've always had that in my head that I'll have kids, multiple kids, have a wee happy family and everything. And yeah, we've got the happy family part, just not got the multiple kids at the moment. So yeah, I think it is just re-baselining what your plans are. Doesn't mean that there's not that life there for you. It just means there's a bit of a change in expectations, and it's that way as well, that you can just start things a bit later. There's no reason why you can't do your letters now, Glyn.
Absolutely good. I could go back to do these. I can incorporate for Noah as well as Elijah. But I think it goes to show, obviously, yourself, other dads. There is ways to have more than one kid with our kids the way they are. It's definitely one of those ones that you need to think well and truly into it, and realise that there is a chance that you could have a second child with additional needs. And that is something you need to prepare yourself from day one with. And that was something that when me and Jade talked about having a second, we talked about it. It was like, there's a chance here that we could have another child that is, having additional needs, could be worse off than Elijah, could be easier than Elijah. Like, you don't know until it happens, or it could be a case of they aren't neurotypical. As it stands at the moment, Noah is behind on his pathway, and we had the health visit throughout this week, and there's a chance that he could be neurodivergent, obviously, but they won't be able to tell me anything or tell us anything until he's at least 2. But he definitely shows some signs. He hasn't got any language at all. He can say dada. That's about it, really. But one of the people at our nursery was like, that doesn't mean nothing. Let's don't stress yourself out about it too much just now. Obviously, just kind of enjoy being parents, and that's what we are. But anybody that's met my wife knows that she is a planner, and she always plans for everything. So I think regardless of his needs or whether or not he needs extra support, it doesn't matter because he'll have us.
Yeah, exactly. It's that way of it's Noah's life sort of thing. It's not as if you're thinking and planning about different things or anything like that. It would just be Noah. And I think it's almost that way of, I said earlier on about half the time we're kind of going through life, you feel with kind of your eyes shut without knowing all these other worlds. And this way it might be kind of opposite, where if another parent had, if there was a slight delay or anything, they'd maybe think nothing of it. But because you're in that world, it'll be highlighted a lot more, so it's easier for people to say, just don't think about it. But I think with kind of knowledge, it's obviously makes it a bit more kind of visible for you guys, essentially, which is the thing. But yeah, obviously what will be, and you guys will, I'm sure.
I remember like a recent thing that we'd gone to like last year, like when Noah was still fairly small. We were at soft play with like all the families that we know, and one of the mums come up to us like, "Can I borrow Noah a second?" And we were like, "Why?" She goes, "I'm just going to take him over to my husband and just be like, try and convince him to have another one." We're like, "You've got 3." She goes, "Yeah, but I want a 4th."
Did it work?
I don't know yet.
We'll find out in due time. I think something that me and my partner talked about, I think if we ever wanted another one, we can't go through the usual means. It would certainly have to be like looking at adoption or something like that. I think at the moment, we're running at the ground as we are, so I don't think we need to add any more absolute madness to it. But I think we're both very much in the camp of never say never. Maybe when the kids are older and we've got a little bit of normality in our lives, we will decide to mess that all up and get another. No, I'm only kidding. But no, there's lots of different means that we can go through, and but I think, as you said, I think you planning for the future is so important. I know you said obviously Jade as a planner.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and I think my partner, she plans, but she can be very spontaneous as well. I think she has ideas in her head of what, how the kids are going to get on, what she expects for the kids, all of these types of things. But then it'll be a case of, on a Saturday morning when both of us are knackered, she's like, "Right, up we get, let's go." And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, I need you to make it." We always joke, I'm always like, "Which one of your personalities do we have today?" Which one am I dealing with? Yeah, but I think in terms of having our children, obviously when you get that diagnosis, like we were saying, it does kind of throw everything up in the air, but there's nothing we would change. I know we talk about, like, I don't think I would change anything to do with my kids. I think I would change the situation that surrounds them. Like, I know for us, we're trying to find a new house that's safer for our oldest, and we're trying to get him into a private institution at the moment for his education and stuff like that. And in a perfect world, we'd have had that already set up, but I don't think I would ever change anything. They're their own little people.
Yeah. I think it's that way. If you were to change anything, you'd want to take anything that makes life difficult for them away, essentially. Because obviously, as we all know, that all of our kids have got their own little personalities that kind of keep us all going. But yeah, I think for me it would be a case of any of the kind of things that make Ashton's life difficult or anything like that is the only thing you'd want to help with. And that's probably the same with any sort of parent with neurotypical kids as well.
Yeah,
you just want to just kind of have the best for your kids. But yeah, and I think that kind of leads us on to our next topic, which we've kind of touched on previously, but I know it's like a constant thing, is dad guilt.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have that experience where I kind of find with Ashton that it's almost that way, that the more progress that he makes, it's almost as if kind of like subconsciously my expectations are higher for him, if that makes sense. So like, for example, if he can do something, so like toileting, for example, so Ashton during the day is pretty much toilet trained. He has accidents now and then in terms of just not making it to the toilet, but I'll find that if he does have a day where he'll have a lot of accidents, I can find myself being like, oh, come on, Ashton, sort of thing, and like telling him off almost sort of thing. And then immediately after it, just having to kind of take that step back and be like, think how amazing he's doing, even being at this sort of stage. And it's that immediate guilt that you feel like I shouldn't be kind of penalising him for making mistakes when he's already doing absolutely brilliantly. So yeah, I think it is definitely a whole progression increases expectation in your head. I don't know if you guys are anything like that at all.
Yeah, I think there's toilets is definitely a thing for us as well. Like realistically, Elijah isn't toilet trained, and I don't know if he ever will be. I've said before, obviously, I think he doesn't know when he goes. Like there's no, obviously, you said before that he kind of T-poses when he's getting ready to go. Elijah, there's nothing. Like he doesn't. If he does, he knows he's going. He doesn't acknowledge it. So we rarely know either. We've tried a couple of times to attempt to toilet train him, obviously throughout the years, and I think we get bogged down with the idea. Obviously, we'll try this. Like we'll try the next holiday, like we'll try the next summer holidays, and then it comes round and like we try for a week, and then we don't stick to it confidently. Last year he went through a stage where he would ask to go to the toilet, and we'd managed it a couple of times, but then I also I don't know if he's just wanting to play at going to the toilet because he's watched a video or he's done a song. So then he'll be like, I want to go to the toilet, and I'm like, no, you don't. Like you're just playing a game, and then I feel bad because he's communicating with me that he wants to go to the toilet. Whether or not he's actually going to the toilet or not is another matter. And then I'm like, oh, okay, like I've got to go through this motion. Like I need to see if this is actually what he wants. 9 times out of 10 he wasn't. He just wanted to kind of play it sitting on the toilet. But because he's doing that conversation with me, I should. And that definitely gave me guilt towards it, obviously, because I'm like, you're just at it. Like you're just playing a game. Like I'm not going to facilitate this, and that. I'm like, no, I should be. Like, why have I not done that?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get frustrated to kind of admit that sort of thing in terms of it's obviously high tempo, high octane, all the sort of things with high intensity would be the third attempt to that word. With all the things for our kids, and I think it is quite easy to get frustrated. And I think it is just that way of I don't think there's any feeling like it, the kind of the guilt or sadness that you feel after it in terms of just looking at your kids and just seeing like kind of how brilliant they're doing and just taking a step back from yourself and just kind of looking down on yourself and being like, why would you tell him off for that? Why would you do this sort of thing? Like he's doing absolutely brilliant. But I think it is that way that most of us are sitting at 100% stress level sort of thing. It can obviously make things easier to be kind of frustrated.
Yeah, I think I look at the progress that my oldest has made, and like you were saying, Glyn, very, very recently, it's been kind of the last 6 months that he's starting to kind of like almost starfish when he's needing to do the toilet, and it's taken him so long to even achieve that. So I think it can be difficult, and there's times during the day where you're trying to get something done, and then I'm obviously a stay-at-home dad at the moment, so I'll be putting washings on, I'll be doing the dishes or whatever, and then my stepson, he'll walk in and he's absolutely head to toe covered in poop, and it's one of those where you turn around and go, oh jeez, right, okay, when you have to kind of stop and start. And for me, being the type of person I am, when I start a task, I want to see it through before I move on to something else. I'm not a multitasker by any means. I find it very difficult, in fact, so a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I need to stop this, put a pin in it, and it's something that I've learned to do. But even like little things, like if I'm really kind of overstimulated and really overwhelmed, I'll kind of bite more on things that wouldn't normally get to me, if that makes sense. Yep. It'll be something so small of I'll be sitting making dinner, and I've got 3 different dinners on the go. All three of my children, they like very different things for dinner, so I'll have 3 different things. You'll have the air fryer on the go, the microwave on the go, the oven on the go, and then I'll have my oldest at the gate with his juice cup wanting juice. Then I'll have my stepdaughter. She'll be wanting to tell me a story about a thing she's watched on YouTube that she expects me to know about that I don't have a Scooby about. So she's telling me all the ins and outs of that. And then I've got my youngest. He's trying to wrestle with a dog, and every ounce of me, I'm just like, I want to just turn around and go, stop, And then when I have these moments where I'm getting really frustrated, and then that's influencing my behaviour on the children, I turn around and go, rather than me turning around and going, sweetheart, I'm making dinner right now, can you tell me the story after? I'll turn around and go, this is too much, I need you to stop. And then how they react, that's when my dad guilt kicks in, and I'm like, I could have handled that better. And it's one of those, like, in hindsight, I'm like, and I think there's so many times I have to turn around and go, I'm a human being, I'm going to make mistakes. Even now, and there's going to be reactions that I have to things that are not going to be the desired reaction. Depending on the situation I'm in, I'm going to really struggle with, different things. I know when plans change in our house, I get very frustrated by that. I like, this is, we're going to be doing A, B, and C today. And then if, next thing it turns out to be, all the way up to Z with how many things can happen, and it does get to me. And that's where my dad guilt really comes from. I sit there and go, I really could have handled that better. Or if it's a really sunny day, like if it's really like a sunny day or something like that, and I've barely slept because I've been up with my oldest, and like that's a wasted day, and that's where some of my dad guilt comes in. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, and I think
that's a lot. Sorry.
No. And I think it's always just highlighted. We've obviously both said about how stressed and frustrated. I think it just highlights the whole thing about kind of self-care, because if you are just in that? Yeah, if you are just in that kind of constant kind of, it's almost as if you're yourself in a kind of fight or flight constantly. Like if you're in that, you need to really take that step back and have a bit of time away, because all it's going to do is benefit you when you are kind of back in that situation. And I think that's where we are all getting a bit better at, in terms of taking a bit of time out to ourselves, kind of meeting up with other dads, and it does make things a bit easier. But I mean, I know for me that it does feel like even it can't even, not even in like it's like situational sort of things. I don't know about you, but if you guys have any of this guilt, or not even guilt, but almost as if there's this pressure that you don't know whether you should be constantly looking to support them and teach them something new and help them develop in some way, or get them to some sort of therapy or some sort of class or something, as if there's always that feeling of, I should be doing more. And so whenever you have that break and stop for a while, and almost like, no, I need to get back to it, because his development's not going to be where it should be, and it's on you sort of thing. And it's
No, 100%. I agree with that completely. It's a case of, what else can I do to try and help him progress, to try and make his life better? And if we're not doing something for that, it's a case of I'm letting him down. Like over the holidays, obviously, is a perfect example. Obviously, trying to make sure he gets out, gets his energies exhausted, and obviously gets used up, and he still gets to enjoy himself as well. Obviously, in the days where we can't do that, and he then dysregulates, or he's having problems, and I'm like, this is my fault. Obviously, I should have had him out of the house. Obviously, could have done this, could have done that, but I also needed to do this. A wash needed to be done. The house needed to be tidied. Like this, something else has happened. So yeah, it is definitely a struggle. Obviously, and I do think that we have to give ourselves some credit sometimes, and just be able to, like you said, we are human. You need to step back and be like, I can't do everything. And I think it can be a struggle for like partnerships as well. Obviously, with our spouses, that we don't take enough time for each other. Like you said, self-care. Like me and Jade had a night the other night just for a dinner for her birthday, and we had to try and fight to try and get somebody that could watch the boys overnight. In the case of, right, okay, we can't be out too late. We can only have like time to have dinner, and then we need to go back to the house, because it's not fair, obviously, that we're doing this, but we need to have time for ourselves as well. Like you said about obviously trying to make sure you're fitting in self-care. I'm bad for that. I don't give myself enough time to do anything, because 9 times out of 10 I'm exhausted by the end of the day. Like you said, I make a point to make sure Jade gets that though, because she has a highly stressful job, and then she has to do a lot more of the one-to-one with the kids. So if something happens with the mums, or if her friends are going out, I'm always a case of, you need to do this. Obviously, you need to take that time for yourself. And I think that's why, if something comes up with the dads as well, then I try to make sure that I do get myself involved in it, because I understand for myself that I do need that time as well.
Yeah. I think that's similar, like to me and Cheryl. Like, Cheryl's the one that'll be pushing me to go out and things. We'll always kind of advocate for each other, because we're much stronger as a team. But we both know that we can both be exhausted and stressed, so we will always kind of push for each other to go out and see our friends and have a bit of time to ourselves. It's one of these things where I couldn't do half the things I do with Ashton without Cheryl. But I think it is just that way. It's still difficult either way. I think that one of the things for me is, I don't know if you guys feel the same, that I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. Have you ever if you go out with any of your friends with kind of neurotypical kids, and it's hard not to kind of compare your kids?
Yeah.
Just like an automatic thing, and it sounds, I don't know how it's going to sound, but if obviously a lot of the sessions we go to now is just all our kids, so it's almost as if you kind of get this kind of, not false sort of thing, but you kind of get this like, oh, it's quite good, like everyone's kind of roughly at the same sort of kind of level sort of thing, and you kind of get that in your head, and you're kind of in this. I think that's why it's so nice having this kind of ASN bubble, essentially, because I think it just makes you feel in a safe place and a nice zone sort of thing. But I feel like when you go out of that, it can be very hard not to just notice that huge difference and not leave feeling deflated, essentially.
I definitely agree. What was it on? Was it Monday? Yeah, Monday we took our oldest to iPlay, and it was just one of those where he was kind of sticking to the same. Both of us were absolutely exhausted. We'd both been up with him all night, but it was one of those that we turned around and were like, listen, we need to get him out, we need to try and knacker him out. Despite how he has slept, we can't not do things during the day. And we both kind of slumped into our chairs and let him, he sticks to kind of the same maybe 2 or 3 things in there. He like the trampoline right up the very top, he sticks to that. There's like a tyre swing behind the slide. He loves swinging on that, and then he'll go down the slide and he'll loop up, and he'll do that for half an hour on end if he wants to. So but it was one of those that there's occasions where we go to ASN events with the kids, but when it comes to a lot of the time, we have to do things during school hours, with our daughter going to school and our son going to nursery, and we don't really have that childcare. Like when you were talking about overnights, we can't always facilitate that. Like maybe once every maybe 3 or 4 months we can try and squeeze an overnight, but the only people that can really watch our kids are my partner's mum, but she works 2 jobs, so it's very difficult to find that time that she can be free. My partner's sister, but she has a lot of kind of health issues as it is, so she can only kind of watch them for maybe a few hours at a time. And then my mum, she can watch her youngest. She hasn't ever really expressed interest in watching the 2 older ones, and that's fine. That's just kind of her prerogative in that, but so it can be really difficult to find that time away. And I make a joke with my partner that this here, recording this podcast, this is my extracurricular. This is my time away, and I do get that kind of worry where I sit there and I go, I need to mute my phone, and I'm like, God knows what's going on at the house, and there'll be times maybe once every 6 months I'll go to my pal's house and I'll stay over, and every ounce of me is sitting there going, God, I really need to check in and see how the kids are doing, see how my partner's getting on. But like you said, it's trying to find that time to switch off from being a dad and focus on being yourself, and that's something I really struggle with right now. I try and think about it as like scales.
Oh.
And right now the dad side of me is hitting all the way at the top, and I'm trying to slowly but surely balanced that. You know, I'm trying to kind of do more things. I'm taking the dogs out walks and trying to find things to do at home, you know, especially while my oldest is at home for the majority. You know, once he hopefully gets into a school placement, you know, that will certainly free up a lot more time, and that means I can try and look at doing more things. But at the moment, I think I'm looking at it going, I have a very limited amount of time to focus on me, so the time that I need to use, I need to use it, and hopefully at some point that will equate a wee bit more. You know, I don't know if you guys are the same. That's just my experience at home right now.
Yeah, pretty much the same as what you said. And touching on what you said, Andy, like we're going back to like the looking at kids obviously that aren't neurodivergent, of thing, having to see neurotypical kids around about. It is hard to not look at them and like, this could have been my life or something like that. Mm-hmm. We have the bubble of we have our groups and we have our kids that we see all the time, so it's easy to be like, I can relax here, whereas I don't think I could even go anywhere near a session with a normal session anymore, like with Elijah, because I think I'd be on edge the whole time. Like even in the SN sessions we go to, I still have to follow him around to a certain extent. And Noah's just finding his feet, so he's in and out of everything as well. So
I was going to say, my partner pulled me up for the fact that I think one of the earlier podcasts I turned around and I was like, oh, I don't think I've met Elijah. I completely have, but I think I was so...
Only the once, it's understandable.
I don't think there's a session that I've been to, ASN focused or not, that I am not like watching my oldest like a hawk, because he is like Houdini. He will find a way. If it's a one exit place, he will create an exit. You know, he's that type of kid. So my missus, she put me up on that one. She's like, you have met Elijah? You have? And I was like, oh, okay.
It was just the once. It's understandable. It was.
But that's that type of kind of mind frame that you get into. You're like, oh dear God, what's my child doing right now?
You're focused on your own kids. Which
is
totally understandable.
Yeah. And I think, to touch on what you had said, Sam, about the whole kind of try to get more time to yourself and stuff, and we spoke about self-care and things, I think it's also important to kind of understand when things are getting kind of too hard, you're getting kind of past that point that you do need that kind of additional help. Because I remember last year it got to the point where I would be having kind of conversations with friends, and in my head I just couldn't take any of it in. Like in my head it was just coming across like, this conversation just doesn't, it's just kind of inconsequential to the difficulties that I'm going through in life just now, sort of thing, and I just wasn't able to kind of enjoy anything. It was very difficult. Going through those periods, it was getting difficult to enjoy time with Ashton. I was almost preempting bad things happening, sort of thing, almost kind of imagining like the kind of perceiving anxiety that wasn't there, and it was very difficult, and it got to the point where kind of fighting it for so sort of long, then having to ask for help and eventually getting kind of medication to help that. And I think that's one of the biggest things I would say as well, because it's not something that I ever thought that I would have ever needed or had to do, but I think that it's important that when we look at self-care, that you do also need to assess that if something's getting too much, that you talk to. For me, it was talking to my wife Cheryl, and obviously just talking to friends and things like that, and it turned out that was the best thing for me to do that, and just kind of really have that kind of self-reflection to try be as best you can for your kids.
Yeah, I completely, like, I think the dad chat for me, certainly, and my partner have been like the two kind of constants, you know, through things that have happened. Obviously, my oldest, when he absconded about 3 months ago now, you know, I was a complete riot, you know, and I couldn't speak to my partner at the time because she was even worse than I was. You know, she was absolutely, you know, kind of, you know, she was just kind of staring at the wall, wondering how could this happen, you know. And the dad chat very much came in clutch on that one, you know, because I think that it can be difficult as well speaking to people that, you know, are close to you. And I know that we've talked about the whole kind of getting it idea.
Yeah.
You know, when you are stressed and when you are, you know, like you said, going to that kind of over the edge of, right, this is too much for me. You know, I know certainly recently, you know, I've seen dads put in things into the chat, and it's been a case of, listen, this has happened, you know, X, Y, and Z have happened. This is my mind space. Am I going crazy? You know, what can I do? I think it's been so good, you know, especially when, like I said, what happened with my oldest. I know so many dads came round and were like, you know, it's something so simple of saying it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was massive because I was blaming myself. You know, I was like, the circumstances that we live in, all of these types of things, you know, I've created that, you know, and I think at the time I was like, he's got out, that's on me. You know, I naturally take things to heart, and I take it, you know, like you said before, Glyn, you know, you kind of expect, you know, all of your child, how your child develops, you kind of look back in it and go, that's on me. So I think I very much blamed myself for that one, and my partner did as well, and we both had our respective chats that we could turn to, and it really helped me in that kind of situation. And I really struggle with my anxiety and depression, so you know, it's certainly something that it helped for me. I don't know about yourselves.
I think the dad's chat has come in a clutch for a couple of people over the last couple of months or so. I know something we've talked about in the past where we've explained what it is. Obviously, we've explained that we've built a community of not that many dads. Obviously, like it's about 34 of us, I'd say at this point. But the ones that we constantly speak to are a lifeline. They're there to listen as well. They're going through the same things. Like we've had a couple of dads this week that have essentially said, without the dad's chat, I don't know who we speak to, and that's that lifeline. Obviously, people go to therapy, they go to group therapies and stuff like that, and this is our version of that. Like just being able to know that you can just, no judgment's going to happen. You can just put in like, guys, I went off one today. I feel terrible. They're like, you'll get a response back from somebody. They're like, don't worry about it. Like it's not going to make it. Like something will happen. You'll be okay. And it's different levels of chatting there. There'll be that emotional confidence, the confinement that we can have. There'll be us laughing at each other about poor DIY. There'll be like, there's always an ongoing football chat as well whenever a game's on. But that is the constant of that, is that there will be somebody there that can listen, that can have a chat, that can have a bit of banter, or that can offer some sort of advice to help you and help anything you're looking for at that moment in time.
Absolutely.
No, 100%. I think it is invaluable to have that community, but in the interest of time, that we should probably try and end on a positive.
Absolutely.
I mean, for me, I'm kind of looking forward, like I said before, looking forward to Ashton growing, developing. I mean, for me, Ashton's got an amazing personality. He's funny, he's caring, and I've got a genuine love for him, and I know that he's got a genuine love for me and Cheryl. And with Ashton, and I couldn't be happier with him. He's doing amazing. Just in that kind of week gone by there, I know I shared in the chat already that he was in for an EEG, which is something, obviously, Sam, you said that with your stepdaughter had the same sort of thing, and that I know that me and Cheryl were massively apprehensive, because essentially what it is kind of like 20 wires glued to his head with a kind of bandage over it, and then multiple cables down his back with like a wee controller / battery pack thing,
monitoring all the kind of brainwaves and stuff like that. Yeah,
in my head was like, Ashton will keep this on for no more than 2 minutes. I didn't even think, and when I went into it, I thought it was a case of it's going to just be a hat that sits in his head, but when I seen they were going to have to individually kind of glue them all to his head, I was like, this is like, can we just leave now? This is not going to happen. But he managed to keep it on full 24 hours, managed to kind of sleep with it through the night and everything. It's things like that where you feel bad for having these kind of low expectations, always assuming the worst, but I think at the same time it's obviously such a kind of proud moment when you're like, I'm so proud how you were able to do this. You did so well, because I know that even just that, for a kid with kind of sensory issues and that sort of way, that it would have been really hard for him, very itchy and all these sort of things. I know he couldn't get it off, and I know that even just personally having to sleep with that in would not have been great. So yeah, massively proud of him. So that's my kind of small victory of the week.
Amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I think that is fantastic. I know, even my stepdaughter, she, it constantly was kind of, the cap was falling off of her head, and she was getting a little bit frustrated, but she handled it phenomenally. And like you said, in that moment, you're like, God, that's fantastic. And I think my small victory this week, I think I look at my youngest and his vocabulary, and kind of like what you were saying, you know, up until he was about maybe 2.5, 3, his vocabulary was very limited, and the last kind of 6 months or so, it's really kind of picked up ever since he's went to the kind of 3 to 5 room in his nursery, and you know, a lot more of his needs he'll talk about, and he's right into music at the moment. You know, Teletubbies, he loves singing that, and but little things. And he turned around and he pointed at his older brother, and he was like, you know, he said his older brother's name, and I was like, wow, that's just out of nowhere. That's amazing. And you know, up until he was about 3, he called my partner, it was Wawa. That was his name for mum. But now it's like, if she's out and about, she comes in and all you hear is him going, "Hi, mummy," and you're sitting there going, like, little things. You're like, oh, you know, you've came on leaps and bounds lately, and you love to see it. You know,
definitely
amazing. I do have one question before I do my little victory. Going for a throwback. Andy, did you get yourself a Hello Kitty cat t-shirt for the...
No.
Oh, shocker.
I should have. I mean, that's the thing. Ashton...
There's still time.
Ashton didn't need it. Maybe next time we can look to get something like that involved. But thankfully, he was quite happy to do it himself with plenty of snacks and...
You can borrow mine.
Screen time. Yeah.
We've had it's been a random week for it, obviously. The weather being nice as such has meant Elijah's been able to go outside, so he's been enjoying some time out. But there was he was having a bit of a bad hair day the other day, and he'd actually asked Jay to cut his hair.
Ah, okay.
And he'd actually, not a full cut, obviously, just a few snips, and that is a huge milestone for us, because haircuts for Elijah meant pinning him down and essentially just shearing him, while he cries and screams and tells you, like, no, stop, please. So it's always been a heartbreaking thing to do.
Yeah.
Touch on the dad, go for that. But I was at work, so I didn't see it, obviously. But Jade messaged me afterwards and saying Elijah came up to me, asked me for a haircut, and he let me cut his hair.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Because it can just be something like that, where it is just a few small things that in his head that he was the one that had control of that. He decided when it was. And obviously, I'm assuming that it went.
Yeah,
well.
He had a couple of scissor cuts, a couple of the worst spiky bits, and that was it. Obviously, he finished and then went about. Obviously, Jade was sat shocked, like she didn't know what to do.
Brilliant.
And I was just like, amazing.
Even like it'll be the littlest things that make so much of a difference, you know. Like, I know my oldest, he like really struggles with getting like his nails cut and stuff like that, and his nail was bothering him, and he came up to me and he was like pointing at it, and he was like, I think he was like, cut, and I was like, who are you and what have you done with my child? You know.
No, definitely. It's good to end on those, but I think just before we finish up there, what we'll do, as we've done every other week now, is we'll just share another one of our kind of favourite places to go, and this week we'll talk about iPlay in Clydebank, one of the places that Sam's mentioned on nearly every episode that he's been on.
We're loyal to the few places that we go to.
Yeah, and definitely. And Sam, I don't know if you want to give it another explanation about what iPlay is like, and we can obviously share some details in terms of where they can find ASN sessions on social media.
So iPlay is situated just into the kind of retail park of Clydebank, next to the shopping centre. You know, there's like you've got like disabled parking right outside, which is really handy for my oldest. You know, one exit in and out, which is really handy again. Lots of kind of wide open area. Lots of different things. You know, slides, swings, trampolines. Lots of stuff like that. There's a really good they do a really good incentive. They have an annual pass that he has at the moment, so any accompanying adult, I think it's only £1 you pay and you go in. All the staff have made it really apparent that they've like read up on him, so a lot of the time, you know, before we've even got up there, they turn around and go, hey, and they say his name, and you know, you're kind of made to feel at home already. And
good.
They openly will come up and like, as we were leaving on Monday, you know, one of the staff members came up and went, oh, by the way, on Sunday there's an ASN session 5 till 7 if you want to come along. And you know, they're kind of, you can definitely tell, they're kind of going out their way on that. But it's a really good soft play. We've had no issues at all. There's party rooms, obviously, for functions.
They do food and things there, don't they?
They do plenty of food. We've got our kind of go-tos in there. But it's the customer service is brilliant as well. So I would highly recommend it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what we'll look to do is we'll share some details on social media about iPlay, so you can check them out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think we'll call it for episode 11. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we will talk to you next week. See you later on.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you want to get involved or get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram under ASN Dad Chat.